Good. So Paul has been involved in free software projects since 1998, and since 2001 he's worked to raise awareness of free software in the library world. He's been a contributor to Koha development since 2001. It became full-time in the project in 2002, and after another 5 years made Big Blue Bray, and here he is.
Here he is.
Over to you.
Here am I. So, hello everybody. I want to introduce myself again, and many of you already know me. I wanted to share with you the story of Koha in France, but besides the story of Koha, who is in France, who is interesting, but you are not French, so you don't care, in fact. Which key were promoting success, and why was it a success? Every story starts with once upon a time. So once upon a time, there was a French developer in November 2001 who was employed by a startup. I was a developer at this time. It was a startup not related at all to libraries. It was related to flower delivery. And I was close from a Catholic monastery looking for an ILS. They had a very nice library who had no ILS. And the sister, who was a professional on information science, asked me, hey, do you know an open source ILS? Because I have asked for some quotes from vendors, and it's much too expensive, so do you have something open source? I searched on the internet, and I found Koha. It was the very, very beginning of Koha. Chris just releases version 1.0, maybe 1 month before, or 2 months before. So I told Corinne, yes, I found one. It's brand new. Maybe you can have a look. Okay, so it was something like early November or middle of November. And a couple of weeks later, I was an ex-employee of a start-down. You know, startup who goes for bankruptcy. And in France, there is a strong social insurance system. And as the company went for bankruptcy, I got a check of 6 months full income. So I went back to Corinne and said, okay, I have 6 months. So I can investigate a little bit more. What is Koha, how to install it, etc., etc. And that was the beginning of my journey and the beginning of Koha in France. So after Christmas holiday, I sent an email. That was my first email to the Koha mailing list. His title was I will work on Koha. You can still find it on the Katipo mailing list. I checked, it's still here. Oh, sorry. So my first challenge was to install Koha. I didn't know Perl. I knew web servers a little bit, but I didn't know Perl at all. So how to install Koha, and once I had a Koha installed, how to fill the database, because everything is empty, and when I click, I get errors. And Chris tells me, no, it works. So there is something I have to understand. And how to have the software in French. At this time, it was not possible to have the software in another language. My second challenge was also to understand the librarian's vocabulary. What is MARC? Corinne was talking of some Unimark. What is it? And when I look at Koha, I don't see anything talking about Unimark or this strange thing. Success factor number 1, solving a problem. Very, very often, an open source software starts by trying to solve someone's problem. Chris started Koha by trying to solve a HLT problem that their previous ILS was not happy with 2,000 euro switch. My problem was that I have to install Koha, and I have to translate it to French and to understand how to make it work for a French library. The first factor for having a success with an open source software is people join because they have a problem to solve. And Chris solved his first problem, and I came and I solved another problem, a new problem, and then someone else came and solved another problem, etc., etc. And then the software grows, and the software improves. It solves more and more problems. And at this time, Koha, I think, solves any library problem. So that's exactly what happened with Koha. Chris and the Katipo team solved the problem in New Zealand. I solved a problem in France, etc. So which problem did I have to solve? Enter the initial values into the database. So one of the first things I wrote for Koha was the admin module that lets you enter a branch, an item type, etc., etc. You can see here the patch. It's still on Git, so it's 23 years old. I'm not very, very proud of this patch. Obviously, don't have a look at it, please. The second problem I had to solve was to translate the interface to French. Here you see in the background, it's Koha 1 opaque, catalog search, member search, etc., the 5 modules. Catalog search was an image, so it is not translatable. So how to make it translatable? And also the source code was all mixed. There was a mix of Perl and HTML in the same file. Everything was 2 lines of Perl, 3 lines of HTML, etc., etc. So one of the first thing, I'm not sure I made it. Adding a templating system in order to separate the display and the Perl part. In order to be able to translate to French, I added a very basic translation system. It didn't last for a long time because there is an open source way of doing things that everybody is using, which is a PO files. So someone else, was it MG? I think so, MG in England, who replaced my homemade translation system to the more standard PO system. And also, I had to add Unimark support because in France, we use Unimark, or you discover, we use Unimark. And in US, NPL, Nelsonville Public Library, Athens County Public Library wanted to implement March 21, and they were ready to fund the development. So that's the factor 2. Factor 2 is build together. An open source software can be successful when people think community, think larger than their own needs, their local needs. In French, we say ne pas se regarder le nombril. Don't be a navel gazer, it seems. But in order to build together, we have to pay someone in order to do the job. When I mean pay in money or pay in time. Well, have someone doing the job. Some people say an open source software is free once it has been paid once. So it has to be paid at least once. And Nelsonville perfectly understood that. And at this time I was thinking maybe I could develop that. And Nelsonville asked me, do you want us to pay you to do that? So I said yes. And that was the next step of my journey with Koha. I started to be paid to work on Koha. I am very gladful toward Stephen Hedges, who was head of the Nelsonville Public Library at this time, because he perfectly understood that if he pays something, he will get a reward, and he accepted to pay something, not to implement Mark 21, but to implement Mark 21 and Unimark. Okay, and that's very important. He was not thinking that my goal is Mark 21. He was thinking the community goal must be Mark 21 and Unimark. So it was great. So build together, people willing to work together. It's also at this time that we started to define a clear, transparent workflow. For the first version of Koha, we were working, there were only a very small number of people working on it. And after maybe Koha 2.0, we started to implement roles to define way of releasing Koha, etc., etc. That's very important from an internal point of view in order to have developers knowing how to work together. But it's also important from an external point of view to have users of the software understanding what's happening. The development of the software is not a black box. It's open and it's known. At this time, we had a release mechanism saying we will release a version when it is ready. So sometimes it takes a few months, sometimes it takes more. After Koha version 3.2, no, 3. I don't remember. We decided to switch to time-based release, and that was an open process. And now every library knows that every 6 months we release a new version, etc., etc. Building this mechanism of how we organized is very important, and it's also a very important key factor to be successful. So after implementing Mark 21 and Unimark and starting to do some business on Koha, I want to give tribute to some key people, because there are some French libraries who contacted me and asked me, do you want to implement Koha in my library? So the first small library were the Chambéry Diocese Library, the La Française County Public Library, and the Centre Roland-Mounier, which are research specialized library. They are all small libraries, and all of them are still using Koha and now customers of Biblibre. At this time, there was enough work for one self-employed person. And after, in 2005, 2006, some key libraries joined the dance. So it's again a tribute to l'École des Mines de Paris and West Provence Public Library. École des Mines de Paris was managed by a woman called Francine Masson, and just for the record, Francine Masson was a woman who had been in the Ministry of Culture and Higher Education, etc. She was someone very famous in France. And when she announced that she was about to retire, and I suspect that she wanted to make something great before retiring, before her retirement, she announced that she wanted to switch to Koha. And all universities and large school and college, etc., had a look at her and said, wow, she's crazy. But we know her. She's not crazy. So maybe we should have a look at her. And West Provence Public Library, which is close to Marseille, where I live, was managed and is still managed by Jérôme Pouchol. And also Jérôme Pouchol in the public library sector is someone quite famous. And he also said at the same time, I wish West Provence will switch to Koha. And so public library were looking at him and saying, wow, if Jérôme is saying that, we should have a look at it. So that's a key factor number 3. An open source software needs advocates, needs promoters, needs people who are crazy enough to say, I go that way and follow me and you will see it will work. And in fact, École des Mines de Paris is still using Koha and West Provence is still using Koha and they are very happy with it. And they have been promoting Koha a lot. And that's important because when I promote Koha and I say, it's a great software, people were saying, hey, yes, but you are selling soft service. So you are not a very objective. And they are famous. Francine Masson and Jérôme Pouchol are famous in their business, so it's even better in order to promote and to make Koha being a success. At this time, I had too much business, so my friend Henri Damien, I knew him before. My friend Henri Damien joined me, and for 2 years we stayed together. And in 2006, 2007, we had too much business, just to stay two self-employed people. So we tried to build a partnership with a French company called Ideo Media System. It didn't work, so we tried to build a partnership with another one, Linagora. It did not work, so we decided to start a new company called Biblibre in October 2007. And in 2008, Laurence and Matthias, here, hi, were Biblibre second and third employee. The first one was his Mark, and he left after a couple of years, but Laurence and Matthias are still here, 17 years later. Just for the record, we call it Biblibre. In French, Biblibre stands for Bibliothèque and Logiciel Libre. Bibliothèque is libraries, Logiciel Libre, open source software. So it means library open source. We are tied to Koha, but we are not Koha France. We want to differentiate clearly the product and the company. And that's another key success. It's welcoming competitors. One of the things I often say to people, to libraries, is that you can choose the software and you choose the company independently. So a couple of years later, two other companies joined the movement, Tamil and Progilon, and they provided services on Koha. Progilon now has stopped, but Tamil is still here. And after funding Biblibre, we had many years where a part of our job was to denounce myths. We had to promote open source in the libraries world and explain that some myths are really false. One of them being open source is not sustainable. So the first answer here is look at proprietary software because they merge and they cancel a given software, etc., etc. So in fact, open source can be more sustainable than proprietary software. And another thing was saying if the community is large enough, then your product is sustainable. And now we can say without any doubt that the Koha community is large enough to be sustainable. And even if Biblibre was disappearing for a reason or another, all libraries in France using Koha could continue to use Koha and find another company to manage their Koha installation. Another myth is open source requires a geek at home. So an easy answer here was, but you know, the French library was a monastery. They don't have a geek at home. I'm taking care of their installation, but I'm not working full time for them. I am just managing it a couple of hours a month, and that's it. And it works perfectly. So I made many talks in conference and librarianship schools, etc., etc. But today I can say those myths are gone regarding Koha. I already said that. You do an open source software means you can choose the software and the support separately. One of the consequences is that a service company must do a good job, because if a service company does not do a good job, then the library will take his Koha and go to another support company. So my main sales argument is come with us because you can leave if you want. I think we do a good job because in 18 years we have had only 3 or 4 libraries who have left. Most of them because they were obliged to. One of them because they were unhappy, so they went with another service company, and 4 years later they came back. One consequence of an open source software is that it reduces cost, and you can be sure that the cost will not increase incredibly just because you are caught by your support company, and you have no choice. with proprietary software, once you have the software, if your the owner says, okay, I double the price, you have no other option than paying twice or switching your software, but that requires a lot of resource and a project, etc., etc. Another 3 years after starting BibLib, we signed our first 2 universities, which are 2 quite large and quite important universities in France. And here we had a pinch of luck. So that's also a key factor, we must admit. A key factor is also a little bit of luck. Why was I lucky? Because Lion 3 signed a contract with Cersei. And Cersei merged with Dynix to do Cersei Dynix. And they received a letter saying, well, we cancel the contract and instead of installing Horizon 8, we will install Millennium. And they said, no, I didn't sign for Millennium, I signed for Horizon 8. So if you don't want to provide it, we cut the contract, we cancel the contract, and we will go open source, because with open source, that will not happen. And another one was, pinch of luck, was Aix-Marseille, that were 3 universities from Aix and Marseille merging together. And it was quite funny, in fact, because the 3 universities were saying, okay, I am more or less happy with my current software, but I don't want your software. And all of them were saying, I don't want the software you have. So at the end, they decided not to choose one of the 3 software. So they said, okay, which option do we have? Hey, there is a French company proposing an open source software located in Marseille, which is nice. So let's go that way. They are still using Koha. Factor 6, which is maybe a little bit more French than for other countries. The French government in general is quite welcoming open source. The French public sector, and especially the academic sector, understands that sharing, contributing is something that is valuable. It's not easy to make a library understand that if she pays for a new feature, then it goes in a common bag, and another one will fund something else, and both will get everything. We call it a non-rival good. And also in France, the highest court has confirmed that it's legal in a public tender to say, I have chosen the open source software X, Koha in our case, I am just looking for a support company. That's very important because now we have several tenders. We often have tenders saying, we have chosen Koha and we want a support company. And for us, that's great because the competitors is other Koha support company, not proprietary software. I'm almost done. BibLib continue to grow and Koha continue to improve. And now in 2027, I can say that in France, Koha is famous. It is the second most widely used software in French universities, the first one being Alma. We already have signed 2 contracts for implementing Koha into new universities next year, and we continue to have new libraries, mostly in academic and research sector and education. Not so much in public libraries, but in academic libraries, we have many customers coming. BibLib is well established in France and in the libraries market. Our staff is 27 people, 2.5 million euros yearly. And we do business 25% on Koha and 75% on Koha and 25%, something like that, on other software we propose. And that's another important thing. I wanted to share with you, we grow our non-Koha business on our Koha reputation and on our Koha community experience. All what I've said on Koha before and all what we face, the success factors, etc., we try to use our experience on other software we propose, and it seems to work. So my last slide is to say thank you to all of you, either long-term Koha developers and like Catherine or Chris or others, and also to say thank you to newcomers, because all of you are very important. All of you helped me and helped Biblib. You taught me so many things, in fact, that you can be proud of what you taught me, even if you didn't knew that you taught me many things. We learn together, and I'm sure we will continue discovering, experimenting, improving our skills together, technical skills and community management skills. And I've seen that tomorrow there is a talk from Open5 regarding building for the next 25 years. So I am very excited in order to think about our next 25 years. Thank you.